Hello, everyone. We want to say Happy New Year to you, and thank you for joining us today for our first All In for Kansas Kids bi-weekly webinar of 2022. I am Debbie Deere, and I am joined today by Hannah McGahee, and we both work for the Kansas Children's Cabinet and are coordinators for these webinars. And we are also happy to introduce today Megan Broha. And Megan has just joined our cabinet staff this week and will also be involved in helping us with the webinars in the near future. So as always, we appreciate you spending your noon hour with us to learn more about the opportunities that are available to you throughout the Early Childhood Network in Kansas. And so today's agenda will include us sharing general system updates on trainings and programs and services that are currently happening in the Kansas Early Childhood Network. And please note that each of these informational slides that you will see includes in the caption how that information ties back to the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan, goals, strategies, and tactics. So during the program segment today, Hannah will be sharing a 2021 year in review for early childhood care and education, as well as I will present information on the preschool development grant timeline and budget process for the third year of this grant. So moving into our general announcements, and we have several today since we've all been gone for a while. The Low Income Energy Assistance Program, or LEAP as it's known, is available to help qualifying households pay their winter heating bills. Assistance is provided to persons with disabilities, older adults, and families with children. Applications began on January 3rd, and the link that's in the chat is available for more information. And I did, prior to starting this, put all of the links in the chat that I'm going to be referring to in this first section. The Kansas Emergency Rental Assistance, or KERA program, is also available to help individuals and families. And this is covering up to 15 months of current or past due household rent, up to 3 months of prospective rent, or past due utility, internet, and fees that might be associated with past due rent. And so we need your help getting this information out to those families that you serve within your networks. This program is designed to help people who are struggling with evictions for non-payment of rent, especially since the CDC eviction moratorium was recently overturned by the US Supreme Court. CDC updated COVID-19 guidance is available at the link provided in the chat. And this is for facilities operating early care, learning care, and education. The most updated guidance is a recommendation that all children over the age of 2 years old and that all early childhood education staff who are not fully vaccinated wear masks indoors. And then also a recommendation that fully vaccinated individuals who have a known exposure to someone with suspected or confirmed COVID-19 should be tested 5 to 7 days after that exposure, regardless of whether they have any symptoms. And we continue to appreciate and recognize all of the work that early learning facilities throughout the state are doing to care for the children and families in their programs, and the overwhelming daily challenges that they are all facing to keep their children and parents and staff safe during this ongoing pandemic. So thank you to all of them for the services that they continue to provide. Child Care Aware is sharing some helpful tips for child care providers to keep children and their care safe during these cold winter months. Safety tips to protect kids from extreme cold and ice conditions, guidance for safe outdoor play, the appropriate cold weather clothing that they might need, written winter weather emergency plans and how to do that. And also COVID-19 information can be found on the Child Care Aware website. The Kansas Racial Equity Collaboration is something that you maybe remember hearing us talk about before, and this is a statewide effort to understand the history of racial inequities in child welfare and to define the problem through a shared language so that we can all advocate for racial equity. This collaborative has some upcoming virtual lectures and debriefs available during January and February, which are listed here. And if you are interested in learning more about this collaborative work or what to register for these events, you could go to the links provided in the chat and that are listed here for more information. The open enrollment period for Marketplace healthcare coverage ends this Saturday on January 15th. Efforts at the national and state level have been ongoing since the beginning of November to help ensure that child care providers get the information that they need to participate in this opportunity. And you can enroll at healthcare.gov and also get local help with this process at getcoveredamerica.org. So time is running out. You might want to check on that very quickly. A partnership between Child Care Aware of Kansas, KDHE, and Links to Quality is allowing the opportunity for free one-on-one coaching and planning to all licensed child care providers in Kansas. And so providers, we all know this, providers wear many hats throughout a day with the work that they do. So these sessions are designed to provide support to those providers in the areas of successful and thriving business practices. And so there is a link in the chat for you to connect with these community consultants through Child Care Aware. The Ages and Stages Questionnaire, or better known as ASTQ Trainings, continue to be offered with dates available on January 18th and 20th, which you can see here. These trainings provide resources to service providers on how to identify developmental and social emotional delays in children, which in turn allows them to seek out and receive services needed at an early age, which better prepares them to successfully enter kindergarten. In addition, free online ASQ subscriptions are also available to any organization that's already providing developmental screenings or would like to start providing these screenings. So you can access information for these trainings on the TASN website at the link in the chat, as well as contacting your local Part C account administrator for the online subscriptions or any questions that you might have about that. Child abuse training is available through the Kansas Children's Service League. So dates for upcoming opportunities on the topics of preventing infant abuse with the period of purple crying, darkness to light stewards of children, and then adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, are listed here. And there's many more opportunities available in addition to these. You can go to the KCSL website listed and register for these. And these also meet the requirements for the KDHE childcare licensing training hours that many of you might need throughout the year. Your feedback is needed in Sedgwick County. DECA, DCF, KDHE, and KDADS are gathering feedback from providers who interact with pregnant women who use substances and what resources they might need to better provide services for better health outcomes for those women. So 3 survey opportunities are available for pregnant women struggling with substance abuse, for medical providers, and also for social service providers. And so $20 gift cards are available for the women who participate in these surveys. And you can contact Adina Kemp, who is with DECA, and she is the community support specialist at this phone number that is listed. The Family Service and Guidance Center is continuing to offer programs and presentations to help make raising children and teens less stressful. I think there's many people listening in that can benefit from that. And these sessions are listed here that are available in January and February. And the links to these are, of course, listed in the chat. The Kansas Early Childhood Governance Summit is being held on January 21st from 9 to 11:15 a.m. And this is in place of the Early Childhood Recommendations panel that would normally be meeting during this time. So groups from the Kansas Early Childhood Governance System will share information on their purpose, what progress they've made to date, and maybe some of their goals for 2022 and opportunities on how to work together within the system to meet the goals of the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan, and hopefully make future connections and collaborations within the system as well. And so all of you are encouraged to join us for this live event, and this can be found on the Kansas Children's Cabinet YouTube channel. And then there will also be a recording available for this to watch at a later time if needed. And you can contact me at this information and my contact here for more information on this summit. And the groups that are going to be participating in this are listed here. There will be 9 groups joining us that day. And this is the first time, to my knowledge, that all of these groups have come together in the same place at the same time to share information and have discussion and answer questions. So we hope that all of you will take advantage of this opportunity and be able to learn some things along with us about what is happening within our system at this time. And we also thought that this would be a great chance to celebrate the accomplishments of all of these groups. And we know that there's a lot of overlap between the people that are involved in these, and many of you are ones that we see here regularly on our webinars. So please plan to join in for this. And then along with that, the Early Childhood Recommendations panel that we always try to keep you informed of does normally meet on the 3rd Friday of every month from 9 to 11:30. And they will be meeting briefly after the summit concludes. So on January 21st, they're going to be meeting from 11:15 to 11:45. Again, you can watch that on the Children's Cabinet YouTube channel. And we also encourage you to always provide input to us that we can share during the open meetings segment or open forum comment section of those meetings. And again, you can contact me if you have any feedback or comments that you would ever like to share with the panel. And so on January 21st, our short meeting agenda is going to consist of the panel members meeting to discuss and vote on the proposed recommendations that are being brought forward by the current work groups that have been meeting for several months: the Child Care Recruitment and Retention Group, Family Partnerships, and Quality and Environments. And so those recommendations will be presented and discussed, and if approved, it needs to go pass by a 2/3 majority vote. And then all of the approved recommendations will be elevated to the Children's Cabinet Board for consideration and approval at a future meeting. So now I am going to turn it over to Hannah, who is going to be sharing the 2021 year in review with you.
Hello all, and I'm so sorry I'm the one that's watching the waiting room. So if you get stuck in the waiting room, I will try and keep my eyes peeled on that. If you noticed on the All In for Kansas Kids weekly email that came out, it would have been January 9th, I believe. There were 4 highlighted early childhood care and education publications that we wanted to bring your attention to. So here are 4 of them if you're interested in some large-scale things that happened last year in ECCE. We're going to start with the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund annual report, just because we're a little bit biased. We like them. And if you go into the report, it's pretty hefty. It's long reading, great graphics though. But just to break down some of the highlights for you, it starts with the strategic plan updates, which includes the 2020 updated needs assessment. So if you remember back in 2019, what kicked off the preschool development grant was actually the 2019 needs assessment. So that was updated in 2020, and that's included in the 2021 annual report for the cabinet. And then there's also really great program profiles for all of the continuous funding opportunities that the Children's Cabinet sponsors. So that includes children's initiative funds, things that are covered by CIF, CBCAP or community-based child abuse prevention, as well as early childhood block grants. So if you want to read more about how that money is spent, who is directly affected, and what the outcomes of those investments are, it's broken up really nicely. It's very easy to find. Go into the annual report, and the link for all of these 4 resources that we're sharing will be put in the chat as well if you want to go through and find the full PDF and read through it yourself. Other 2 sections in the annual report I think that generally people would be interested in would be our new initiative spotlights for 2021. So Dolly Parton, just because who doesn't like to talk about Dolly Parton, but if you remember when we kicked off the Imagination Library expansion here in Kansas, that was incredibly exciting and allowed the Children's Cabinet to partner and bring books and literacy to a whole new group of children that wouldn't otherwise have access to that. So that's been very, very exciting. And pretty much every time we have a staff meeting or we get together as the Children's Cabinet, Melissa is sharing, we think this place is going to sponsor another library expansion. So it's catching fire across Kansas, and it's really exciting. Another thing to highlight that's in the annual report is the investment in Scent Topeka. And if you remember, that is a child care center in Topeka, Kansas. It also serves as a technical education location for young people that are coming into the field and new hires that are trying to get their feet wet and figure out if early childhood is for them. So it's a really incredible kind of a hybrid model that they're doing in Topeka at Scent. And if you want to read more about it, go to the annual report. And then we also had preventative legal services, which was new this year in 2021, Thriving Families, Safer Children, and then the CBCAP demonstration project. So this is just a real quick highlight. Please read the report if you're interested in more. Another resource that I think most of us wouldn't have otherwise accessed was the 2021 Start Early Year in Review. And this is another, it's kind of lengthy, but it's organized really well. It's very easy to read, and it just goes over some of the key accomplishments and elevations that happened for fiscal year 2021 for Start Early. And what that really translated into was investments in early and Head Start networks, as well as healthy parents and baby programs, and the home visiting and doula networks. As I was reading through the 2021 year in review from Start Early, I thought it was really interesting that across the field, this large scale, full force organization struggled with some of the same barriers that our local home visiting struggled with. So they highlighted in their report that they were able to continue to serve families virtually, but because of the pandemic, they couldn't provide services as they typically would. So there's 3 different sections here that if you're interested in things that we are all very familiar with in this sector, just to see how other areas were able to adapt and overcome and continue their service delivery through the pandemic. And then we had the Center for American Progress, the Early Learning in the United States report in 2021. And I was not familiar with this at all until I saw it on the email. It's actually an annual report of all 50 states, and it pulls statistics for all 50 states, including District of Columbia, and just provides an overview of affordability and access for families, compensation for child care providers and early educators, and then the economic benefits of increased public investment. So if you're curious about what different states are doing, how they've been able to do it, if they've been able to leverage economic initiatives like public-private partnerships, this is a really, really interesting resource. And it's also very interesting to see how Kansas is reflected from an external stance. So if you go to the link in the chat and you can pull up, you can see the report, the snapshot from all 50 states or DC. And you can also just look at Kansas if you're interested. But it will provide us with what we look like. It would provide you with what we as Kansas early childhood look like to the rest of the nation based on the current situation, missed opportunities, and then economic benefits of public investment. So you can kind of, not dollar for dollar, but you can kind of look at different states that may be similar to us in different policies and see how they are holding up compared to us, or how we look compared to other infrastructure. So this is a really great resource, I think, for anybody that's involved in policymaking or just any stakeholder. I would encourage you to check it out. And then finally, we're going to go into the sector, which is a publication for early childhood care and education. And the link in the chat would bring you to the 10 biggest early childhood stories of 2021. Now, I will note, and it took me a second as I was reading through this the other day, that the vast majority of these stories are from outside of the United States. So they are in countries that may have, that may consider childcare a different portion of their infrastructure than we do. There was a lot of stories about Australia, New Zealand, and so I thought it was very interesting to see how different countries across the globe view early childhood and how they've either built it into their infrastructure or they haven't, and how that affected their ability to adjust once the pandemic hit. So really interesting stories across the country specific to resiliency, problem solving, overcoming all of these global themes that we've all been talking about for the past 18 months, 2 years, but from a perspective that is not just United States. So I would encourage you to check all of these out. I would say in your free time, but I know that you probably don't have any because this month is already just wild. So, but definitely worth reading. And that is all I have for that. Back to you, Debbie.
Okay, thank you, Hannah, for sharing out all of that. And I have gone ahead and put those links as well as the links that I'm going to talk for some of the stuff I'm getting ready to talk about in the chat. So for the second part of our program segment, I will now present information to you on year 3, the Preschool Development Birth through 5 Renewal Grant, or better known to all of us as PDG. So this is a reminder of our state's 3-year PDG renewal grant timeline. And coincidentally, we were awarded the grant just when the COVID crisis hit, and we'll enter year 3 starting on April 30th of this year. So you can see the timeline here of years 1, 2, and 3 with the year 3 budget due to our federal partners by mid-February of this year. And the grant purpose is to strengthen the early childhood care and education system in Kansas. And there are specific activity categories that all of our efforts have to fall into. And so those categories include Activity 1, which is the needs assessment that was done originally in 2019, and that has been updated since then, which I'll touch on in a minute. And then Activity 2 is the strategic plan that came from that needs assessment, and both of those can be found on the Children's Cabinet website. Activity 3 is maximizing parent and family knowledge. Activity 4 is sharing best practices and early childhood care and education workforce. Activity 5 is improving overall quality and service integration. And Activity 6 is monitoring, evaluation, and data use. So you can find an overview and reflection on year 1 activities on the Cabinet's website, which is the link for that is showing here. And I also put it in the chat. And then we will post a year 2 reflection later this summer. So some major initiatives that we are planning with year 3 funds for PDG are listed here. So first we have subgrant renewals and kindergarten readiness grants. And so the renewal grants represent a continuation of approximately $3 million that are going into communities and organizations and childcare providers across Kansas. And then the new grants for year 3 will be another round of kindergarten readiness grants, which those will be announced and more information will be available on that in the near future. So be watching for that. I'm going to skip over the workforce supports part because I'm going to circle back to that in a minute and let Hannah elaborate more on all of the work that's happening with that. She did touch on the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which is another one of our initiatives, and that is going well, as she said. And as a GG of some grandchildren, I was excited to be able to sign a few of them up for the books that we are looking forward to receiving. Another initiative is our ESIDS, or Early Childhood Integrated Data efforts. And so this work reflects the commitment of state agencies to share data and conduct robust analysis of the wide array of programs and services for Kansas children and families. And this is about us helping us understand the impact our universe of early childhood programs is having on children and families. And so the first use case of the Kansas Data Trust was a partnership between the Children's Cabinet and DCF, and that was shared at the December Children's Cabinet meeting. And you can find that recording of the meeting on the Cabinet YouTube channel. Another initiative is the continued support of Bridges Pediatric Pilot Ages and Stages Questionnaire, or the ASQ, and 1-800-CHILDREN. So year 3 will continue funding these exciting initiatives that are led by KDHE, KSDE, and KCSL, the Kansas Children's Service League, to help ensure families are connected to our system when and where they need it, and that they don't fall through the cracks. And then the final initiative here is the support of system strengthening events and needs assessment update. And so there are a limited amount of funds available in year 3 to support system-wide events or trainings that strengthen the system. And events this last year have included statewide conferences, regional training events, and have been used to help secure speakers in spaces. And so we will be using these funds to continue to update our needs assessment. You can find the original one from 2019, the comprehensive needs assessment, and the 2020 update, both on the Cabinet website. And we also have funds to print physical copies of this. So please reach out if you would like copies of either these or the strategic plan. I know that mine is has all kinds of earmarks in it, and sticky notes, and it looks pretty worn out, but it's well used and it's a great reference to have. And all of the work that we usually talk about on here can tie back to that somehow. So as mentioned, I'm going to circle back to Hannah, and she's going to talk some more about the workforce supports that are happening that she's very busy with.
Yeah, my strategic plan actually started coming apart at the seams, and I had to creep into the office and politely ask Melissa for another copy, which I guess I'm entitled to over the course of my employment. So just to touch lightly on 2 major initiatives for workforce that most of you have been either involved with directly, contributed feedback to, you've been a subject matter expert. What we're talking about is not new. You guys have been on this journey with us. You've been on this journey before we got on the journey, so you know more about it than we do. But the career pathways. So we've been working for quite some time trying to develop a statewide career pathway for early childhood care and education. And there's a number of reasons that we need a career pathway in Kansas. One of the biggest reasons I think that is driving this is just clarity for recruitment and retention, and to advance the profession. So we want people who are coming into the workforce to have a very clear understanding of what they need to do in order to advance their career, and what that looks like as far as professional development, what that looks like as far as clock hours versus higher education, how they can go from one position to another, how they can come into the field, and then ultimately, if they exit the field, what that all looks like. So that's been a very heavy lift, a very good lift. And we've been working on that with stakeholders from the infrastructure for, probably 14, 15 months now. If you remember, there was a professional development implementation team that was stood up about a year ago, and they have been heavily involved providing subject matter expertise on all things career pathway. So licensing, regulation, clock hours versus higher ed, things like that, just all these conversations that have been taking place. And then from here on out, when I say we, I'm typically referring to PDG staff like myself, and then our partners at KU. So in addition to the professional development implementation team, we entered into a contract with a consultant, the Baker Street College of Education, to try and develop the actual career pathway, so the physical career pathway. And that's been a labor of love for a minute now. And it's so beautiful. I just love looking at it because it's so close. But it's provided a lot of clarity. And we're very excited to start having more conversations with stakeholders as the spring develops, bringing the career pathway strategically to stakeholders and then getting more feedback so that we can roll it out. And hopefully, if somebody is coming into the field and they just have a lot of questions, they'll be able to find answers to those questions in one place and take ownership over their career and know how to migrate from one position to the next without a lot of confusion and wasted resources, most importantly, because we cannot stand to lose any more providers in our field, and we've got to do everything we can to find more incredible providers to take care of our children in Kansas. So that is the career pathway. PDG will continue to fund efforts to develop the career pathway, and that includes a portion, as I noted, the contract that we entered into with the Bank Street Consultants. And I apologize for this sound that you get to listen to. But in addition to that, as you know, PDG, the preschool development grant, won't be around forever. So from here on out, we're being as focused as we can be on sustainability. So career pathway and workforce registry we're intentionally building in multiple funding streams, so braided funding streams, so that when PDG goes away, the career pathway doesn't go away, the workforce registry doesn't go away. They are sustained within the infrastructure of our workforce. Another caveat to another key highlight here for career pathway is the work that's being done by the Workforce Development Advisory Group, which is one of those groups that Debbie mentioned and is part of the governance structure of early childhood in Kansas. And so they have been working tirelessly, not only on the career pathway and, kind of playing tennis with us, if you will. We go back to them and say, is this right? Does this seem right? But also on core competencies, because a career pathway really without core competencies doesn't hold a lot of water. So just a shout out to the Workforce Development Advisory Group for their efforts, in addition to everything else they have going on. So we're going to switch gears now. We're going to go into the workforce registry. One of the biggest pieces of, I would say, PDG and most glaring needs that came out of the 2019 needs assessment was the lack of a workforce registry. And I'll try not to drone on for too long about this because I know you all have heard so much about the registry and why we need it. But one of the biggest reasons is it comes down to a lack of alignment. We aren't able, as a system, to pull information about our workforce. We aren't able to contribute to policy conversations, conversations about pay and benefits, and what does our workforce actually look like? Is it disproportionately women? Is it disproportionately people of color? Are we being paid appropriately? All of these questions. And if the data does not live in one place, it's very difficult to have those conversations. So the workforce registry is going to empower our workforce, and it's going to empower our workforce to advocate for themselves. It'll hold professional development. It will hold career advancement opportunities. And just it's going to be an incredible tool across our structure. So plans going forward for the workforce registry, we've been working, I would say the last year and a half was almost entirely research. So speaking with, and again, I've got to give a shout out to the Workforce Development Advisory Group for the groundwork that they laid, just investigating, creating relationships with established registry advocates. So whether that's the National Alliance, which is a group of registries across the nation, and just learning as much as we can about what we need for Kansas as far as a registry. And then we as who, myself, KU, took that first leg of work and continued on and started researching what are the needs, what do stakeholders want, what do we need the registry to be able to do, and who can build it for us. So we started talking to vendors, we started cross-referencing so many spreadsheets. And then here in the last 2 months, we have been in a relationship with Resultant, and they are helping us put together business requirements. They're going to help us put together, or we're in the process of putting together the actual physical RFP. I know you guys are all so excited to actually hear those letters. And so we're on the precipice of turning the corner on the Workforce Registry Initiative, and it's going to be very exciting here in the next few months. So PDG will continue to support that, but as I said, PDG is not going to last forever. So intentionally, we are building in additional braided funding streams so that when PDG goes away, the registry is solid and sustainable. So that is all I have for those. I think that we did this on purpose, guys. We didn't want to take too much of your time because we knew that you were so busy. But if you have any questions about any of these things, we definitely have time for that. If not, I'll turn it back over to Debbie. And also, I'll say, if you have a question and you'd rather not bring it up here, I'll put my email in the chat. We have Debbie's email. You can also get in touch with Sarah Gardner. So any of these things that we've just talked about specifically with PDG, please email us or somebody else if you'd rather talk to somebody else, and we'll do our best to answer those questions as well privately.
Well, and Hannah, I think on the next slide maybe is Sarah's contact information, as well as that's also listed in the chat. And as you mentioned, yours and mine are also in there as well. So we welcome questions and a discussion from everyone. So yes, I think we're going to get a little bit of time back in your life today. To close out the meeting, we'll just talk about some of the upcoming meetings that have already been referred to a little bit. Again, the reminder about the Early Childhood Governance Summit. It's a great opportunity to learn about what's happening in our system and ways that you are going to be able to connect with a lot of those folks doing hard work. And so that's on January 21st from 9 to 11:15. And then the recommendations panel will meet briefly after that to take a look at some of those work group recommendations that are being brought forward. The next biweekly webinar that you will see us here on is Wednesday, January 26th. And we always welcome you to let us know what topics you might be interested in, or if you have any information from your agency or organization or the work that you're doing that you would like to share out on those webinars and or in the weekly emails that the Children's Cabinet sends out every week. We do have an upcoming Children's Cabinet and stakeholder group meetings that are scheduled for Friday, February 4th. The Cabinet meeting is in the morning from 9 to noon. And then the stakeholder group meeting will be that afternoon from 1:30 to 3, correct? I always forget if it's 1 or 1:30, it's 1:30. And you can register for that stakeholder group meeting at the link that's listed here. And we also always invite you to share any type of feedback that you might have at this link that's provided at the bottom of the screen for the Kansas Children's Cabinet.org. And so my closing words for today, as we all head into 2022, diving into it head first, as always. The quote that I have today is, "This new year stands before us like a chapter in a book waiting to be written." So we hope that you will find the inspiration and motivation that you need to be the best possible version of yourself in this upcoming year. We also hope that you will continue to join us on these bi-weekly webinars and hear what's happening throughout the early childhood world in Kansas. And that when you do that, you walk away with more information and some helpful things that aid you in your work, the important work that we're all doing. So please stay safe and healthy until we see you again in 2 weeks on January 26th. You get 20 minutes back in your day, so maybe go enjoy a longer lunch or a late lunch, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everyone.